they was having a discussion about what is the greatest like era of hip hop. I had seen like they did another list where it was like, what's the greatest year of hip hop? They had it like out loud for every year going from like 1980 to like 2023. 2024. I ain't want to do that because I know a lot of y'all niggas ain't tapped into the early 80s and shit like that. But what's the greatest era of hip hop out there?
The greatest era of hip hop? I mean, I can define it down to the greatest era of hip hop. I think the golden era of a hip hop for me, it definitely had to be the 90s, bro. I think the 90s was unmatched. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we had the best hip hop in the 90s. Let me say that. I feel like that was the golden era. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't go with the 2000s because we had a lot of new styles and stuff, but definitely the 90s was I would say the golden era of hip hop. Like everybody had a classic album that came out. Everybody. Groups, solos, everybody's stuff was classic to me.
Yeah, I mean, 90s, I'm always going to go old school anyway. I feel the 90s is the greatest era. I think the 2000, the 2010, even the 2010, I think that can make a strong argument.
I mean, that would be the top debate. You know what I'm saying?
90s. A lot of the people from the 90s, they, you know what I'm saying, blossom in the 2000s, like Jay, Nas, Cameron, these people that came out in 97, 98, and that, because there really is, it's two different parts of that 90s. When I feel that the 90s, when it really, really took off, is like 97. Like 90s, that's like a different, like the 97 through 2000, that when after Pac and Biggie died, it was crazy. Because you got the No Limit, you had the Cash Money, you had the Jay, Nas, X, Murder Inc. You had everything. Like and that 96, from when 96 was in, it was still Bad Boy, Death Row, East West. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I got to go with the 90s because, as you said, a lot of them trended over to the 2000s, and they're like bosses. Like
I go with the 90s, but I feel like the 90s just ain't strong as the 2000s was. And I'm always gonna take the 90s, but I'm saying I just don't feel like they was strong enough all through the 90s. The 90s had a time where the East Coast didn't have nothing coming out that shit.
I mean, but when we talking about eras of this, are we talking about all of music? Or are we just talking about rap? Are we talking about R&B and?
No, we talking about rap music. That's what I said, hip hop, because like it's a time of the 90s when the West Coast had literally took it over. It like the East Coast didn't have shit coming out that much.
They had stuff in the East. It just was more West Coast artists at the time.
Yeah, the West Coast was running it. They was running it, bro. Like it was no ifs and buts about that, man. Until Biggie came in probably 94, they was running it, man. They had niggas like Run DMC and them trying to be gangster rap.
But we had Nas out there.
Nas came out in 90.
Mobb Deep out there.
Nas didn't come till 93.
That's 93. That's 3 years into the
94.
era.
What about 90? What about 91?
I mean, but we had NWA out there back in the day.
The East Coast. The East Coast.
No, but we talking about golden eras, though.
I'm saying, though, it's a time in the 90s where it didn't have, like the whole game wasn't moving like that because, like I'm saying, the East Coast was doing the East Coast, which they wasn't a lot coming out of that motherfucker at the time, and the West Coast was running it. They was running the shit.
No, I didn't disagree with that because they was.
That's what I'm saying. Where's the 90? Where 90 who was running it? 91 who was running it? 92 who was running it? 93 who was running it? Then, like I said, 94 came, Nas came, and then, I think Biggie came in 90.
It was some niggas in the 90s
Name them
early
off.
before that, bro, man. We
off,
can't say that, bro.
It was no nigga that had an impact on the East Coast.
We ain't had no KRS-Ones coming up.
They was in the 80s. They was in the 80s, and they was there.
But they came in the 90s, too. They came right into the 90s.
No, they didn't, man. Like I said, they was in the 80s. They was, and like I said, Run DMC was coming into the 90s dressed. They was trying to do gangster rap in the early 90s. Everybody was trying to pattern themselves trying to do the gangster rap. Like, Biggie had to come in and set the fucking, and Nas had to come in and bring that shit back. Like, Craig Mack, like, come on, like, it was like Craig Mack in like 90, like, he had, what, that's 93, I think?
That was like 92, 93.
93.
Flavor in your ear.
So, like I said, Mobb Deep wasn't the Mobb Deep. They were kids at that time.
Yeah, but they was working, man. Cause what's their first album drop?
Juvenile Hell. No, it wasn't. That's what I'm saying. That shit wasn't hitting like that. Juvenile Hell was not hitting like that.
Man, bro.
Juvenile, they will tell you that.
On niggas, bro.
I'm a hip hop nigga, bro. Mobb Deep will tell you that they Juvenile out of Prodigy mouth. That shit wasn't hitting like that. Juvenile Hell wasn't. Now, Infamy and all that shit after that, you know what I'm saying? Nah, that shit is classic, but Juvenile Hell, it was young. It was
Man, my nigga said Infamy. I didn't even think that was a classic album.
Infamy, it was dope, nigga. Murder music, nigga. Like, come on, like that shit, them shits is classics. But I'm talking about the.
But I'm sure it was artists around 90,
Wu-Tang
91,
didn't
92.
come. Wu-Tang came strong.
92,
man.
nigga.
They didn't come in
92.
92. That's what I'm saying, bro.
Wu-Tang first album dropped in what?
Like 93, 94. That's what I keep saying.
But they were in. I mean, I ain't gonna say they were in the game, but they were already had single. I think they first single
from
might have
88. From 88, I ain't gonna knock the East Coast completely out, but from like 88 to like 90, really until 96. From 88 to like 96, man, the West Coast ran that motherfucker. When NWA came in the game in 88, whatever it was, yeah, it was before 88, but when they took over in 88, they ran that shit. You gotta remember, they had Cube, they had Easy, they had Dre.
They came in 92. They came in 92, my bad.
Who?
Wu-Tang.
Okay, but I don't even think the album came out in 92. It didn't come out
No, it
in
came out in 93.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, it was on the map, though.
So everything I just said was correct.
I did not agree. I didn't agree with you because we first was talking about the golden era, then you went into the West Coast, was running shit in the 90s and shit. I didn't disagree with you. They had their time. They did their thing. They had everybody from Warren G to.
Well, my argument was, and what I was getting at the point was that the 2000s had more of each from everywhere. You had Ludacris. You had, I mean, the South when Atlanta was doing their thing, but you also from 2000 to 2010, you also had Miami have a surge in that. You also had Texas have a surge in that. You also had Chicago have a resurgence in that. You had Detroit, Michigan. You had all that come in there. It's not a place that really didn't have, you know what I'm saying, they foot in the game on there. And then, like I say, even the East Coast had theirs, like how they always. Only thing I would say probably about in the 2000s, the West Coast probably had their lower point until Game came.
Yeah, they kind of came off, and I think that Game came in there kind of. But Snoop put a lot of solid work out too.
He did, but he was only Snoop. Like you name somebody, that's what I'm saying. It goes back to that.
Only Snoop.
I'm talking about on that level though. On that level, that's selling records. Like in the early from 88 to 93. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't nobody on the East like that compete with the Too Shorts, the Ice-T's, the Dr. Dre and NWAs, the Snoops, Dub C, Ice Cube, West Side, DJ Quick. Like, these niggas was out here moving. Niggas start gangbanging. Like, niggas start gangbanging. We got Bloods and Crips in New York. You got them back home in Michigan. We got them in St. Louis. We got them everywhere.
Yeah, we're around here now.
So that should tell you how much influence them niggas had on each other, man. Like, that's like Texas. When Texas came in 2000, I ain't saying when they came in, but when they came or hit that scene hard in 2005 or whatever it was,
that shit was crazy.
Everybody started screwing their music.
Chopped and screw. Everybody started drinking purple drink.
Everybody started slipping active. Everybody started getting that. Even Sierra, her first or second single, man.
Yeah.
Slow.
Screwed up.
Everybody started pushing. So I'm just saying, like, everybody, it goes through that, it goes through that pretty much, everybody had their time into it or whatever. But 2010, I'm just keeping it real. Like, I'm gonna choose the 90s, but 2010 on paper, 2010 on paper, I don't even think it's a motherfucking argument. You had Beyonce's solo album. Rihanna got introduced.
Kanye's it was a lot of traction in 2010. That kind of led us to where we at kind of now.
Drake came out. Wayne dropped his biggest album of his career.
Yeah. Wasn't Kendrick coming out around that time?
Kendrick might have came out in 10 or something probably like that.
And you got Wale came. A lot of people came 2010.
It's a lot of people. I said from 2000 to 2010. That 10 years, a decade. So that's what I'm saying. Like, through all that 10 years, and you take the 90s 10 years, that's what I'm saying. Like, the best part of that 90s, the best part of the 90s was really, and that's over Dre and them, that 97 to 2000. That shit was the Air Max 97s, Air Max 98s.
Yeah, and then you forgot No Limit was buzzing during that time. I'm talking about
niggas had the college jerseys was rocking it. Everybody was rocking the Jerry Stackhouse jerseys and shit, bro. Like, it was just a different time. Yeah,
it was a different feel. Niggas was rocking the felines. Remember Pac had the felines on in the inside of the Grand Hills.
When Pac was dead, bro.
You said 90s. Oh, yeah, you said. But I'm just saying in that era, just in general, nigga.
No,
like
he
the
had
whole
some shit
hip
on,
hop,
man.
all that shit, it was impeccable during them times. Like, and it's funny because, like you say, it's coming back around this time. They still wearing this shit. They bringing all this shit back.
Yeah, as I say, everything that, you know what I'm saying, it's like it goes in the circle. It will come back around. But, hey, man, y'all let us know in the chat, man, what is the greatest era of, hip-hop? Or decade of hip-hop, I would say, man. 80s, 2000s. I mean, 80s, 90s, 2010 to your, 2010.
Some
to
niggas gonna say 80 to 84.
That ain't an era, nigga. That's not a decade. But like I said, some people gonna say 2010 to 2020. You know what I'm saying? That's just that's they pick. They may have something in there.
It's gonna be a nigga that's 15 to 92.
But that also got the mumble rap in there and everything. So.
We must pay homage to him.